Welcome to the latest episode of SmartB Sports Update Podcast. Gonna have some exciting times during the social media commentary. Yep. But of course, we're gonna kick off with. How are you, man?
Yeah, good. Thanks, John. Yourself, mate?
I'm fantastic. Just great. We'll just kick off with our Elite Bet sponsorship. So, for the whole month of November, Elite Bet is our preferred bookmaker. All bookmakers claim to offer service of some description, but Elite Bet, they generally pride themselves on offering exceptional personal service that is not found in the bookmaking industry. They're an Australian-owned business where old-fashioned customer service really matters. Elite Bet. Think, is this a bet you really want to place? For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Let's talk about New Zealand versus India.
Yeah, John, really impressive with the bat from India. I think that their mindset's shifted now that we're in the knockout stage. India winning by 70 runs, 4 for 397 from their 50 overs. New Zealand all out for 327 from 48.5 overs. So India now progressed to the final, obviously. John, I think that they won the toss and batted first because it's different in the knockout games. I think you want to get that score on the board and apply scoreboard pressure, and India certainly did that. It's not like you're playing against minnow teams like the Netherlands, Bangladesh, or England, John.
Yeah, exactly. I like the throw in there.
Yeah,
or England, a minnow team.
Yeah, so it's not like you can roll a team for 150 in 20 overs and then knock the runs over in 15 overs. You're playing against difficult opponents, so you've got to play the long game. So I think India were justified, or clearly they were justified in batting first and putting that monster total on the board.
At 30 overs, they had 202 runs. And I was just like, well, this is going to be ridiculous.
To be honest, John, I thought at that stage they were looking at maybe, 420, 430. But anyway.
It slowed down a little bit.
Slowed down a bit there at the back end, John. But, well done from India. Very impressive. Virat Kohli, 117, another 100 from him.
It's a record-breaking 100, right?
It is, yeah. I'll get to the stats in a moment, John. I've got a full list of stats for you. Shreyas Iyer, he was sensational as well. 105 off just 70 balls, 8 sixes. Bashed 8 sixes there, John. Shubman Gill, he made 80. 80 not out for Shubman Gill. So very impressive there from India with the bat, John. New Zealand really struggled with the ball. Tim Southee took 3 wickets, but he went for 100 runs, John. Just very ugly economy there from Southee. New Zealand in reply, Daryl Mitchell got 134, well batted from him. Kane Williamson, who's only just come back from that thumb injury, 69, so impressive from him there. But they were the only two. Glenn Phillips made 41 as well. 327. Mohammad Shami, John, 7 for 57 from 9.5 overs. Very impressive with the ball too.
So New Zealand hit 327. Imagine hitting 327 and not winning.
And not even getting close, John.
Like they would never have looked like winning. I was asleep at the time, but. All out 48.5. If they had had that 1 or 2 extra overs, they would have got 350 maybe. And still, they would have lost by 47 runs.
Yeah, 70 runs is, it's not a complete thrashing, but it's a comfortable win.
I think it's a complete thrashing, and India hit 397 off with just 4 out.
Yeah, I think as usually happens with India, John playing at home, the bit went on with the pitch.
Well, I got to think for this.
Yeah, right, okay.
So it's gonna. There's an email's been leaked from the ICC pitch consultant Andy Atkinson. He complained.
ICC pitch consultant.
Yeah.
His email inbox would be interesting, John.
He complained the pitch for the final might be a slower one, previously used twice instead of the one that was intended. So the pitch being used more times than it was meant to. The tournament's opening game in Ahmedabad took place on the pre-agreed pitch number 6, but none of the next 3 matches conform to the schedule. So not only has India been playing with the pitches, they haven't been playing on the pitches that they said of. He was then told by the ICC senior events manager at the stadium the India versus Pakistan game on October 14th took place on pitch number 5, when it actually took place on pitch number... took place on pitch number 7, when it actually took place on pitch number 5. Atkinson warned in an email. As a result of these actions, one must speculate if this will be the first ever ICC CWC final to have a pitch which has been specifically chosen and prepared to their stipulation at the request of the team management and/or the hierarchy of the home nation board. Or will it be selected and prepared without favouritism for either of the sides competing in the match in the usual manner and unquestionably because it is the usual pitch for the occasion? So there you go. The BCCI, who really control world cricket, said the Gujarat Cricket Association authorised the changes while the GCA claimed they were acting under instructions from the BCCI with the requests coming from Indian team management, claimed the Daily Mail. So BCCI says Gujarat Cricket Association did it. Gujarat Cricket Association says BCCI did it. With the request coming from Indian team management to change the pitch, not only doctor the pitch, but change the pitch to better suit India for the slower pitch.
I think when requests are coming directly from Indian team management, we're getting into dangerous territory, aren't we, John? I think that's crossing a line.
Now, there's a lot of corruption in world sport because they're going to continue on with soccer later, but this is beyond a shadow of a doubt the dodgiest thing that's I've ever heard of in world cricket. Like we've been making jokes for the past 6 weeks about how India doctors the pitch, and this email's being leaked in which the ICC is aware. The pitch consultant, Andy Atkinson, is aware that not only do India doctor the pitch, they change pitches without going through the proper channels, and it's all at the request of the Indian team management. So it's not just the BCCI doing it for the Indian team. It's the Indian team saying, this is what we want, and knowing in advance, this is what we want and this is how we're going to play.
So it does, and John, obviously India are the overwhelming favourites to take out this World Cup trophy. This sort of casts a shadow over the tournament. It will cast a shadow over their victory if they get the victory. This is as bad as it gets, really. And we again, you mentioned we've had a bit of a joke about it over the last 6 weeks. We're always into FIFA when this sort of thing goes on in soccer. But this, again, I know, England won the last World Cup in England. Australia won the last World Cup in Australia. But you look at those two results and you sort of go, well, it's obviously England are going to play their best cricket in English conditions. Australia are going to play their best cricket in Australian conditions. But it feels like what India are doing here, John, it's going over that line. This is not just India playing well in their conditions. This is blatant pitch doctoring for all to see.
Australia didn't win every match in the 2015 World Cup. England didn't win every match in the 2019 World Cup. India not only won every match in the 2023 World Cup, they dominated. And it was always like they knew something that everyone else didn't.
Yeah.
And if it's these, like the BCCI and the GCA, Gujarat Cricket Association, are both blaming each other. But
there's a difference between a team playing well in their conditions and blatant doctoring of the pitch at the request of team management.
Yeah, well, this is because it's coming from the team management. That is not in dispute. Like, whether it was the BCCI or the GCA who requested it or did it, both of them, the one thing that is clear is it came from the Indian team management. So the Indian team is going out and saying, this is how we want to play. We need the pitch to be like this, so pick the pitch that does it. And even if you can't get the pitch that is scheduled for it to be played on, we'll just move to another one. It's fine, That's as suspect as. It's sanctioned cheating.
Yeah, it's not on, John. It's a disgrace. Yeah, it's an absolute disgrace.
If the ICC pitch consultant is complaining about it, because this email was leaked, it was maybe Andy Atkinson. Nobody knows who leaked it, of course. Daily Mail knows, but someone has gone, this is dodgy. I'm going to leak this. Whistleblowers don't do it. Not always out of spite, They do it out of spite when they get fired and then report that the Bulldogs are rotting the salary cap or whatever. Melbourne's reporting the salary cap. But this one's just a whistleblower's gone like, hey, have a look at this email where everybody's been joking about it. And, like I said like a few times, India stopped saying India stopped saying we're not doing it and started saying everybody does it. But I think you can now, it puts a kind of a tarnish on their whole performance, because now if you go back and look over the whole tournament, what India has done, it's the tournament's been made for them, Like I said, Australia didn't win every match in the 2015. They lost in New Zealand to New Zealand. They ended up beating New Zealand in Australia. England didn't win every match in the 2019. Yeah, 2019. Because no matter how, everybody doctors the pitch, it's kind of an established thing. You get your home crowd advantage, you get your team, your pitch managers to do some silly buggers for you. But this is just beyond. They've just gone that step over, It's like saying everybody takes PEDs, so Russia's going to give everybody PEDs.
Yeah, and it's like, on the Australian grounds, John, that they have their own characteristics, traditionally. And it's not been that way so much in recent years, but traditionally the SCG was always a spinner's pitch. Traditionally the Wacker in Perth was always a fast bowler's paradise. That's one thing, individual grounds having their certain characteristics. That's one thing. Team management sending an email and getting caught out, having clear instructions for how they want the pitch, is another altogether.
Yeah, this is completely. Yes. Yeah. Like I said, everybody does it, but there's
there's a line though, isn't there?
Everybody cheats the salary cap in rugby league, but not everybody cheats it by $1 million every year over multiple years. Okay?
Yeah.
They do their $75,000.
And not everybody has Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk, Greg Inglis, Cameron Smith on their roster.
So. Everybody doctors the pitches or plays with the pitches, but not everyone goes through a World Cup tournament winning every single match, dominating in every single match because they had pre-planned pitches.
If they do go on and win this World Cup, which is overwhelmingly likely they will now, John, this is going to taint their victory.
Yeah, but one of the things about cricket is BCCI control the ICC, basically. And so it'll be swept under the rug.
Oh, yeah, they won't suffer any consequences.
So it'll be swept under the rug by international cricket, but every fan will always remember it.
Yeah, 100%. Poor New Zealand, India's got over 1 billion people population. New Zealand's got, 5 million?
Something like that.
And, India still needed to doctor the pitch to beat them. Again, there wasn't much in it, John. 70 runs. The doctoring of that's a close enough margin for the doctoring of the pitch to have been the overriding factor there.
Exactly. John. So that's you can go back and look at it. If anybody wanted to, they could go back and look at every single match now and go now I can see. It obviously they dominated Australia in the opening match like that. That was just Australia was in poor form because South Africa did the same thing. But throughout the rest of the tournament, India has maintained the same basic level, and it kind of implies that, like what India did to South Africa. It's now that's called into question. I said at the time, it just kind of showed that South Africa still hasn't gotten over that big game issue. But what it really could have been is the Indian team management contacted either the BCCI or the GCA, and then the other one told the other one, and then they went out and made a pitch exactly for how they wanted it to be. And India had the pre-knowledge of it. Having pre-knowledge of that, something like that, especially in cricket, is such a massive advantage.
Yeah. It's terrible, John. It's terrible. It's not good for the image of cricket in general either, that this could be allowed to happen. I guess that's the difference between cricket and a sport like tennis, for example, John. I mean, at least with tennis, yeah, you got players who are better on clay or better on grass or better on a hard court, but everybody knows the scenario, right?
Yeah.
If you're Rafael Nadal playing against Roger Federer, you know Federer is going to be really good at Wimbledon on the grass, but you know you're turning up, you know what the court's going to be when you're turning up if you're Nadal. Likewise, if you're Federer going to the French Open playing against Nadal, oh, I know it's going to be on clay, I know this is his fortress, I know I'm going to be up against it. But this scenario, how can the opposing team prepare?
No, exactly.
Not knowing.
This is like Roger Federer rocking up to play on clay. To play on grass, and suddenly his side, or Rafael Nadal's side, is clay.
Well, that's sorry to get off topic, but they actually did that. Once they did that, they played a match on a half clay, half grass court. Brilliant. Incidentally, yeah. But anyway, yeah, getting a little bit off the. But it's
it's like Rafael Nadal being able to email Wimbledon. Or the
French Open, yeah, that's
and saying, I want them to have the bad half of the court. Like, go out there and put some dents in the court or something like that. It'll screw the ball up, like.
Yeah, I want you to put extra red dust on the clay at Roland Garros. Yeah,
only on their side, only on the other opposing team.
Yeah,
side.
or Roger Federer emailing the organisers at Wimbledon saying, I want you to shave more grass off the centre court. It's the same thing.
So dodge.
If that had have happened, there'd be an outrage.
Yeah, what's it called? ATP. What's the international tennis? ATP.
Yeah, the ATP. Yeah,
so that ATP, every single world sporting organisation is a little bit corrupt, but the ATP they've shown it doesn't matter how big of a star you are, they brook nothing, they don't accept anything. And so they're not if that was to happen, I'm sure they would remove records, remove wins. They would undo it.
Yeah.
With the cricket though, because the BCCI control world cricket.
Yeah.
They're just like I said, I'll just get swept under the
rug. Yeah, the ICC basically are the cricket version of the United Nations,
yeah.
John. They're there in name only. They don't actually do anything. In the same way that the UN can't stop the US from doing anything, the ICC can't stop the BCCI from doing anything, John.
The ICC will ban Sri Lanka because their board is corrupt.
Target Sri Lanka, yeah. Case in point, John. They come down hard on Sri Lanka, but India, no, that's fine.
Yeah. That's the same with in the Asia Cup where it was meant to be in Pakistan and India refused to cross the border. And I was talking to the Indian fans that I know, even the Indian fans know, they were like, yeah, because BCCI control world cricket. They get to see what happens. Right? Yeah. Well, yeah, you even know it and you're giggling about it.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to see what they will say when I push them about this dodgy cricket, the pitch doctoring. I want to see what the guys like Yash say to me and how they can try and justify it. I'm sure they'll just go, yeah, you accept that it's good for India, but it's bad for everyone else in the world. It's bad for world cricket, frankly. When we go to South Africa next time, it's not going to be the same. The South African team isn't going to. Yeah. Contact whatever South Cricket Association and South African Cricket and get pictures doctored on the team management's orders, and that's why this is such a actual big thing. The fact that only India can do this. Yeah.
Not good, John. Anyway, I got some stats on this game.
Virat Kohli's record.
Record-breaking performance. Yeah, well, Suaalii, John, 7 for 57. His bowling figures, the first Indian to take a 7-wicket haul in ODI cricket. There you go. He's also the first bowler to take a 7-wicket haul in an ODI World Cup knockout game. So there you go. As you mentioned before, John, it was a record-breaking 100 by Virat Kohli. He's now got 50 hundreds in ODIs, the most for any player in this format, going one ahead of Sachin Tendulkar's tally of 49. So well done to Kohli. The 711 runs that Kohli has scored in this World Cup, John, that's the most by any batter in a single edition of the men's ODI World Cup. I got the men's in there, John.
Men's,
Just wanted to make sure I made that clear. Surpassing Tendulkar's 673 runs in 2003. That's now 8 50-plus scores for Kohli in this tournament, the most by any batter in a single edition of the ODI World Cup. The 51, that's now 51 sixes hit by Rohit Sharma in ODI World Cups, John. The most for a player. That goes past Chris Gale's 49. Of those, 28 of them from Sharma have come in this World Cup. The most for any batter in a single edition, surpassing Gale's 26 in 2015. The 67 balls needed for Shreyas Iyer to complete his 100, which is the fastest in an ODI World Cup knockout game. The previous fastest was by our Club Prairie fireman, Adam Gilchrist, who got a century off 72 balls against Sri Lanka in the 2007 final, John. The Sri Lanka have fallen a long way, haven't they?
Yeah.
Making finals in 2007. Look where they are now. The 397 for 4, India's total against New Zealand, John, the highest by any team in an ODI World Cup knockout game. Previous highest was 393 for 6 by New Zealand against the West Indies in the quarter-final of the 2015 World Cup. And one last one, John, 2. That's the number of times Tim Southee has conceded 100-plus runs in an ODI game, John. He was way off. Well, in terms of runs, I mean, he took 3 wickets, but in terms of runs, he was way off, John. The first bowler to do so twice in this format. He had also conceded 105 runs against India in 2009 in Christchurch.
Bad, maybe you should stop bowling.
Well, it might have got... Well, it's gone some way to costing them the game, John. Southie's going for 100 in his spell.
Well, I'm solely blaming it on the pitch.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Nothing else matters. It's solely the pitch and nothing else. Yeah, well done, India. They're going to go through to the final. You do what you have to do. If they're going to cheat, they're going to cheat. And if they're going to be allowed to by the ICC, then of course they're going to do it. Like I said, it just makes it terrible. All of those records are now like,
Yeah,
Virat
there an
Kohli got
asterisk
50,
on
but it was on a doctored pitch.
Everything I just said, does it have an asterisk?
Everything is you got to add on to them. Well, yeah, but it was on a doctored pitch. So, odds check for Australia versus South Africa this today.
Yeah.
Australia is still playing $1.67 with Elite Bet. I think is just a bet you really want to place. To South Africa's $2.20. Now, weather has actually been updated in our time. We were discussing it before, and some things, Google was saying 80% chance of rain, and then an article 3 minutes before we started said 7%. So AccuWeather now has it down 7% hourly. So that's for tonight.
Yeah. So, John, what I'll do, I'll point out for our listeners and our viewers that we are recording this podcast on Thursday morning.
Yeah.
The game is on Thursday night, Australian time. So, we did a detailed preview in our last podcast, which was recorded on Monday morning. There's not really much point in us going through a detailed preview of the game now for that reason. Very short turnaround time between this being published and the game starting. So, if you're watching us before the game, you can check out our last podcast for a detailed preview if that's what you're looking for. If you're watching us after that game, we'll have a full review of that game and the final in our podcast on Monday morning.
Yeah, and so, good news is there might not be rained out because, as we discussed the other day, if it does get rained out, there's a reserve day for Friday.
Yeah.
If that gets rained out, then South Africa goes through. So, 7% chance of rain hour by hour today, all the way through to tonight. Tomorrow, it's definitely raining. So hopefully they get it done and dusted tonight.
Yeah, hopefully they get a result one way. Hopefully it's not impacted by rain, John. We don't want to have to go into Duckworth Lewis first. Well, actually, it's not going to go to Duckworth Lewis. If they don't get the result, South Africa will go through because they finished higher.
It's terrible. So, that's pretty much all there is left of cricket. BBL, after the World Cup final on Sunday night, BBL will start a couple of weeks later. So we'll start doing BBL breakdowns because BBL's so much fun.
Yeah, awesome.
But the NRL draw has come out.
It did, John?
There's a lot to get to in that, actually. So, obviously, you can't do much analysis. Everyone is doing analysis, but the caveat's got to come. All analysis is currently based on results in 2023.
That's right.
Okay.
We don't know who the improvers are going to be.
Yeah, exactly. But based on 2023... Cronulla have the easiest draw with only 9 matches against 2023 top 8 teams. Storm has the hardest. So even though the Rabbitohs and Bulldogs have 13 top 8 team matches and Storm only has 12, Storm actually have to play all of the other 3 top 4 teams twice. So they're going to be playing Penrith. Who are the top 4? Penrith, Brisbane,
and
the Warriors.
Warriors, Melbourne,
Yeah. So Storm have to play Penrith, Brisbane, Warriors twice each. Which if all three of those teams continue on as they have, that is a very, very tough draw. Your Bulldogs are sitting at third, toughest draw.
Yeah.
Rabbitohs.
I think because it seems, I know I don't want to sound like a complaining supporter here, John, but that seems to happen very regularly with the Bulldogs. I think because they rate really well on TV, they seem to play against a lot of the biggest teams because, they're in the blockbuster time slots a lot. Yeah. So, it's not great, John. It'd be nice for a team that's been struggling for as long as they have, as I said, 7 years without making the top 8 now, that they'd get a bit of a help with a lighter sort of draw once in a while. But, the draw's the draw, John. If you play well enough, the draw's not a factor. I try not to complain too much about something like the draw. If you're good enough, you'll be thereabouts at the end of the year, John.
The Storm never complained about the draw no matter who they got, because the Storm were the Storm. Bulldogs will get upset, or Rabbitohs, Dragons, Tigers guys will get upset because they want an easier draw to give them a chance of improving. But
that's the thing. You shouldn't really be spending your time complaining about your draw. You should be spending your time, on improving your team and focusing on the things you can control as a team. As a club, you've got no control over what the draw is going to do to you, but you do have control over, things like recruitment and that sort of thing, John. So
post-draw, the odds have come out for the outright, or there was already odds for outright winners, but they've been adjusted now. So Penrith is still all odds brought to you by Elite Bet. Bet with your head not over it. Penrith Panthers $3.75 for a 4-peat. Is that what it's called when it's 4?
quad something.
Back to back, 3-peat, 4 in a row.
Back to back. Yeah.
Broncos are second at $4.25, and Storm, then it jumps out to Storm, Rabbitohs, and Roosters at $12. So that's based on the draw release. Our boys were just, Dragons are $101. Canterbury's not going bad, $61. Oh. Chuck a tenner on that.
I think I'd steer clear of that one.
Don't chuck a tenner on that. Bet with your head.
So if they sign Luai, John, what do you think the 61 would turn into?
Like 40.
Right, okay.
I got some news about that Luai thing, but we'll continue with the draw for now.
Yeah.
John, producer John, your flashlight's on. It's right in my eyeballs. Tech guy.
So the Panthers, John, they've got the Storm, Eels, Broncos and Roosters in the opening month, so that's a pretty tough run, but it is the Panthers. So
they're one of those teams that don't care?
Exactly. They won't have any problem. The West Tigers have done quite well, actually, out of it, John, and they need to do well out of the draw. They need all the help they can get. They're only going to play 4 games against this year's top 4, so there you go. But they do have, they're one of 6 teams to have 3 5-day turnarounds. Wow. So that's a bit tricky. The Rabbitohs are getting some good airtime, John. They are going to have 14 games on free-to-air TV. The Panthers and Broncos are going to have 13 each. No surprise after the season they've had.
Broncos will always have a lot.
I think that we've covered all the key points of the draw. The Warriors and Canberra, they're the only top 8 teams from this year not to have at least 10 games on free-to-air.
That's not fair.
Parramatta are one of 5 bottom 9 teams to get into double figures with that there, John.
And so State of Origin period is quite interesting too.
Yep.
So Dragons have the best State of Origin draw. So they got Panthers in round 13 and Broncos in round 19, which is the rounds that those teams will be missing their State of Origin players. Mm-hmm. So State of Origin 1 and 3, they get a weakened Panthers and a weakened Broncos.
That's good, John.
Brisbane have the worst draw. So they have to travel to New Zealand after Game 2 in Melbourne in just 3 days. So big travel, and then their players will have to back up. And then after Game 3, they've got to travel to Newcastle in 3 days. So that's a terrible draw for them. There's also the Dragons got the bye for Magic Round this year. Last year, I think it was the Dolphins or the Titans. No, it wouldn't have been. Yeah, I can't remember. But They've also added an extra day to Magic Round, so Women's State of Origin is going to be 3 matches this year, and that'll kick off on the Thursday for Magic Round. So Magic Round is now Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. First day is Women's State of Origin, second day is 2, then 3, then 3, with no dragons.
Awesome.
I think the best thing to come out of the salary, the draw, were the videos, though. The Instagram posts.
Yes, bit of a segue there, John.
Now
the Dragons have caused a bit of a stir. Your Dragons have caused a bit of a stir with the Roosters. So yeah, as you mentioned, these draw videos, John. The Dragons players acted out charades to guess their opponents for each round. Dragon star Jack Bird mimed out a brown paper bag and fistful of money, with teammate Kyle Flanagan immediately guessing the Roosters. Roosters chairman Nick Politis, he wasn't happy, John. He blew up about it.
Yeah, I saw he had a whine. Like, man, that's just part of being a Roosters. Like, come on. Everybody knows the Roosters have some... I'm not implying they're cheating, but they have magical salary cap workers. You know, everybody knows it. Triple M calls it the salary caps. It's the salary sombrero. Every time they talk about Roosters, they play that. Like the Roosters, if you want to be a Roosters fan, if you want to be part of the Roosters, if you want to be a Roosters player, you just have to accept that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, it is a tricky one to talk about when we're on camera and on a microphone, John.
But it's like, it's not just the Roosters who get it, it's the Broncos too. Like the Broncos get the salary, and Melbourne had it for a while, and then look what happened there. But it's just what do you call it? Like, people make fun of the Tigers because the Tigers are always at the bottom of the ladder. People make fun of Melbourne because they're in Melbourne and nobody cares. People make fun of Brisbane because they get unfair advantage on television things. It's just, that's what the Roosters shtick is. Like, you make fun of the Roosters because they got a salary sombrero. That's just what it is, man.
Yeah, well, one thing I would have thought, John, is that Politis would have just been better off ignoring it.
Yeah, exactly.
Giving no response to it.
That's your generalisation.
Because he's given it oxygen.
Yeah.
He's got it out. Again, this is another example, John. If Politis hadn't have responded to it, I wouldn't have even been aware of it.
Well, that's what the news article...
you might have mentioned it, maybe, I don't know. But if you didn't mention it because you're a Dragons fan...
well, it was nothing. It was just part of a long, funny video.
Yeah.
That was just the nothing. And I actually, I thought the Eels salary cap draw video was the best. It was a group of memes, like meme after meme after meme, just hilarious. And I just thought, Parramatta's won the internet for today. Doesn't matter where they come on the ladder, they've won the internet. And that was going to be what I actually talked about here. But then Nick, it wasn't the Dragons, man. I watched the Dragons one, and I was like, yep, cool, just another one. And it's just another thing that people make fun of in rugby league. But then Nick Politis had to come out and, have a whine about it.
Off the top of your head, John, I know we're just looking at ballpark figures here, but you're a numbers man. You deal with numbers all the time. If that Dragons video had have not been responded to by Politis, and was it posted on their club social media?
Yeah.
So how many people you reckon would have seen that had Politis not responded?
Dragons aren't that popular on the internet actually. But I think it's 30,000 views. That's the...
Okay, so 30,000 would have seen it. And how many now...
But even 30,000 views is irrelevant because it's 2.5-minute video, man.
So
not everyone would have watched it.
Only 5,000 of them might have actually seen what we're talking about.
Yeah, everyone... I wonder what it's at. We should go check it out.
And so now that... While you're looking that up, I'll just continue here, John. So now that Politis has responded to it and made the story continue... How many more people do you think now are aware of it than would have been aware of it had he not responded to it?
I think I got 140,000 followers. That's amazing. Where is the video? So not even, man. It was 2,923. 2,923 people have liked it. I can't see how many people have viewed it, can I? I don't know how to use Instagram. There we go. 52,000 people have seen it. So the Dragons average, actually... the Dragons average around 40,000 views per video. So anywhere between 17... A few get 100,000. But like I said, every single club did a 2.5-minute video for the draw. Nobody was... The only people who were going to watch the club posts are the club fans. Like, most people aren't going to go, like, Dragons fans aren't going to go, what's the Parramatta one? Dragons fans aren't going to go, what's the Dolphins one? Dragons fans aren't going to go, what's the Bulldogs one? Because they talked about it, a lot of people would have gone to watch at least up until that point. So 52,000 people have viewed it, which is just around the ballpark for Dragons. They get 100,000 viewers for some of their reels. But it wouldn't have been news if he hadn't have commented. I'm sure, though, some news reporter probably messaged him and said, "You see this?" And you got to also remember, Zach Lomax is in it, and that guy's a bit of a twat. I know he's my player, but he's like a mad troll. When Tyson Frizzell went to the Knights, I think there was one match where the Dragons scored, and then Zach Lomax jumped on Tyson Frizzell's back. He's one of those Josh Reynolds, Michael Ennis grub type players, and he's in this video. Of course he's going to do that. Like I said, man, I'm in a tipping competition. A lot of my friends are Roosters fans, and it's how I give it to them. It doesn't matter. They can just make fun of me because look at my squad and look at where my team finishes. They just make fun of me about that all the time.
One thing I would say, John, is what Politis could have said is we have never, ever, 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 ever in our life cheated the salary cap, ever.
The Dragons have been done for it
and
before,
And did he say that?
No. He said, it's just jealous and I'm sick of it and blah, blah.
He could have... There was nothing... One thing I think I can say, John, there was nothing stopping him from coming out and saying that. Nothing. And he didn't say that. So
if I was him, I would have just said... I'm sure a reporter called and asked him, but if I was him, I would have just said, I don't care. Because, man, every club has something that everyone teases them about. Every club. You can't not talk about, Newcastle and go on about how, there's all the... is it at Newcastle? So you got players who got done for smuggling animals. You got players who got arrested for ecstasy sales. You got Andrew Johns takes the pills. Everyone says Newcastle is just full of pills and drugs, It's the stick you give them because that's all you have, especially when it's someone like the Roosters and it's all you got because the Dragons can't make fun of anything else. Look at them. What else are they going to say? So, it's part of being a fan of any sports club is understanding that there is a thing that people will find to make fun of your team no matter what. And, that's the one about the Roosters. We make fun of them how they rot the salary cap, even though they've never been done. Dragons have been fined a few times for rotting the salary cap, or salary cap breaches, not rotting the salary cap, He could have responded with that. How many times have you been breached?
He didn't say we've never ever done this, John. Sometimes it's not what they say; it's what they don't say.
Yeah. Not implying that this.
Not
Roosters roll the salary cap any more than anyone else does, but
no.
They always seem to get their man.
We'll point out that there is no evidence that they've ever done it. There is not. There are a lot of stories that go around, but there is no evidence of such behaviour, John.
Speaking of the Roosters, apparently Joseph Suaalii is coming back to the Roosters in 2028. I don't know why.
I don't know why they would want him back, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. I don't understand it either. I've got it in my later news, but Rugby Australia CEO Phil Waugh has ruled out splashing any further cash at NRL stars, saying the 15-a-side code can't continue to spend more than we can afford. So it was, there's some, the NRL has now come out and said they will give dispensation salary cap exemptions to any team who signs a rugby union star. So the Roosters are in discussions with some rugby union star. His name is, I can't remember his name. It's really long. Even MG struggled to say it because he's the best outside back in rugby union, and then they'll get a salary cap exemption if they sign him, which is quite funny. Take that, rugby union. And so rugby union has responded by saying, yeah, we're not going to chase any more rugby league stars because they don't make money. So it's not a matter anymore of rugby union can come along and throw $5 million a year at everyone and take Wendell Sailors and Lottie Takiris and stuff because they don't have the money to spend. Their whole code is in disarray. Apparently Suaalii is coming back in 2028 after his rugby union contract expires, I wouldn't trust anything.
Something tells me that's just not going to happen, John.
But if he goes and plays for the Wallabies or
it's easy to say that now. That's 5 years away. I can't see it happening.
Yeah. But there's also the NRL in Vegas ad.
Yes, there is, John. So
I saw that awesome ad.
Yeah, the NRL has put out an ad to promote the 2024 Las Vegas season opener in the United States. Their punchy catch line is "No pads, no helmets, no fear." There you go, John. It's a 30-second highlights clip. It's got Moses Leota, Jorge Tafua, Cameron Munster, Dom Young's try against the Dragons gets a run on the ad, John. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, of all people, Joseph Suaalii's in the ad too, John.
Of course he is.
Nathan Cleary, Regan Campbell-Gillard, Latrell Mitchell, our friend, John, and Cody Walker are all in the ad. The vision's going to be shown on America's Fox network, John.
Ugh.
I guess they want people to go to the Allegiant Stadium there in Las Vegas and check out the doubleheader.
It's supposed to be a beautiful stadium, by the way.
So, according to reports, 15,000 tickets have been sold, and the NRL are hopeful of filling the 65,000-seat stadium. The Sea Eagles, are going to play the Rabbitohs in one of the games, and the Roosters and the Broncos are doing battle in the other one, John.
When I was younger, I thought the no helmet, no pads thing was like showed how rugby league guys are tougher. But if you go and I watched NFL because when the Wii came out, Nintendo Wii, there wasn't very many games actually. There wasn't very many AAA rated video games available on the Wii. Okay, they had this thing called shovelware, which was just garbage that would come out, and you pay $60 for like Gingerbread Man or Gingerbread Ninja or something that would get like 1.0 rating on IGN. And Madden was the third highest rated game. Yeah, so right. I was just like, screw it, I'll buy it. I bought it, and I just couldn't understand how to play it. Because I hadn't watched NFL in like 20, 30 years since I was a kid, and I used to play Madden on Sega Mega Drive. So I sat down and like spent some time watching NFL, and that's when I realised, man, they have to wear pads. They have to wear helmets. Those guys are massive humans, like the guys in the NFL, they're all 200 kilo, 6'8" monsters that do, you're allowed to, don't know the exact rules, okay? Because I just wanted to get the tactics, and even then it's like 20 years since I watched again. They're allowed to do things like tackle in the air, when the players jump. And there are things like in the NFL where they can outrun the ball because of the shape of the ball and the way their punters kick. They kick high and long. It's not like rugby league where the ball will outrun the ball will be faster than the player. It's very rare. I remember there was one time when Brad Fittler kicked the ball really high and then outran the ball and stopped in front of, I can't remember who the player was, but he actually said something to the player. And the player looked down and the ball dropped in between them. And I heard him tell the story. He said, it's taken a while to come down, isn't it? So that was like, it's so rare and far between that I can remember times when actually the tackler outran the ball. In NFL, it's every time. And so they get guys running like 130 kilo, muscle-bound, massive units running full pelt at the kick returners. And, they get hit hard. So in NFL, you're allowed to do a thing when you're a kick returner where you can raise your hand and take a knee. That means they're not allowed to tackle you and you're happy to stop there. It's like, we're going to take the ball from here. Because, they need pads and helmets, man. They really do.
Oh, yeah, 100%, John. It'll be the first time an NRL game will be played outside of Australia and New Zealand. So there you go. Or NRL games will be played outside of Australia and New Zealand. I'm going to just qualify this a little bit, John. So I know that at SmartB we've got a competition, don't we?
Coming soon, yep.
Yep, coming soon. I think it's 2 tickets to Vegas? Yeah. So that's all well and good, John. I wish if I could, I'd love to win that prize. That'd be awesome.
2 tickets to Vegas?
Yeah, unfortunately I can't win, that's fair enough, but I'd love to be able to. For anyone, in our... or anyone like us, John, who loves the game, Australians who love the game, we'd love a trip to Vegas to watch the NRL. For people over there in the United States and in Vegas from Australia, I'm sure they would love to go to these games, John, and absolutely. What better than having the NRL in Las Vegas? But, John, in terms of growing the game in the US, they're just... I think that they're kidding themselves if they think they're going to get any sort of real traction, John. I mean, there's 3 sports the Americans really care about: American football, basketball, baseball. Golf's probably at number 4 on the list for them. But, John, for I mean, even a sport like tennis that's been in the United States for, centuries, that they don't even care about that, really.
No.
So for a new sport like rugby league, to get any sort of real traction there, it's going to be a bridge too far, surely, John.
So there's actually like some history there because the rugby league was a rapidly growing sport in America. I can't remember what World Cup it was where America made they qualified, and when I say North America, I also mean Canada. And if you remember, there was the Toronto Wolfpack was in the Super League.
Yes, Sonny Bill played for them briefly.
So I'm not 100% sure what happened and everything because it was actually quite a while ago. They had a domestic competition, and they qualified for the World Cup. And then the American domestic competition used 0 players who participated in the qualification, and they used a bunch of local NRL talent and stuff like that. And I think it was Kevin Proctor, who lived in Hawaii at the time, was brought in, but he hadn't actually played rugby league for a year or something. He'd been retired for a year. I don't know which Paulo it was. One of the Paulo brothers was the 5'8", and he'd been playing at Parramatta at the time. And it's, again, like, my memory's a little bit hazy about it, but something happened in which they went through like a Super League type war. Now, obviously, like, they're a very low level sport in America, but they went through a Super League like war over this decision to not use any of the American players. American players qualified, but didn't get to play. And they went into this 2 competition type thing, and that's one of the reasons that the Toronto, as well as COVID, but one of the reasons Toronto Wolfpack closed, because they had massive problems. And now it's ironed itself out after seriously like 10 years it's taken, and now the American domestic competition is kind of getting back to where it was when they qualified for the World Cup. And the America wants to host a World Cup for rugby league. I know that. So that was one of the motivators, from what I understand, for taking a game to Vegas, to actually test out the kind of response they get. Because even we went through it last time for the Rugby League World Cup 2026. They have that like weird qualification system that we couldn't be bothered getting into the rabbit hole that there was there. But it's already New Zealand, England, Australia, Fiji, Lebanon, Tonga, Samoa, and Papua New Guinea. Now, the other qualification is there's some controversy around it, but America could be one of the teams that qualifies. There's a chance for America to qualify when there's multiple competitions they have to win or something, and then they want to host. They can't host in 2026 because of Francis kerfuffle, and now it's being in Australia. But possibly the next one America would host, 2030. And they've got to work out whether it's even worth it. So if they can get 65,000 people to that stadium, obviously there's going to be a bunch of people who travel there, 2 of our listeners.
That's 2 of the 65,000.
There's going to be a bunch of local Australians that are there that go, who live there or are there. There's going to be, probably 10, 15,000 people who travel in just specifically for it. But if they can get 40,000 local tickets sold based on marketing and stuff, it kind of gives that boost to rugby league, not to become a major sport in America, but to put American rugby league back to where it was. And my kind of, again, vague recollection of it was when America was in the World Cup, it got some good ratings in America because Americans will watch anything America's in.
That's true, yeah. That's true.
They were my second team for that World Cup until I realised it was just all NRL players. I'm like, the hell, man. Like, they were, I like to follow the minnows, and they were the minnow that got in.
Yeah.
And then I was like a little bit, this is a bit bodged. Like, they're just chucking a bunch of NRL players who have, like, the grandfather of the grandmother or whatever was something, and the cousin's best friend's dog was purchased from an American dog breeder, so therefore he qualifies.
Yeah.
And I think they even made the quarterfinals.
Like you said, John. It's going to be a lot of the attendance is going to be people who travel from Australia, plus people from Australia who are over there living in the United States.
Yeah.
Living in Las Vegas. So it's just the thing is, John. A lot of people, if there are some, Americans who turn up to the game, out of interest, out of curiosity, probably most of them are not going to know the difference between rugby league and rugby union.
No,
they're going to probably go there thinking it's a game of rugby union, and they'll probably watch the game and leave the ground thinking they watched a game of rugby union and not know the difference between rugby league and rugby union.
One of the things I understand about that is, we're really narky about rugby league is rugby league, rugby and rugby union is union. But in the rest of the world, it's only Australia who differentiates. You don't say rugby when you're talking about rugby league. The rest of the world, including like England, who have the Super League, and they're happy to refer to rugby league as rugby.
Yeah.
And we're really tribal about it in Australia. But yeah, that speaks to what you're talking about, because people will just go thinking it's a rugby match.
Yeah.
And they don't know that there's a difference.
Yeah, they'll go thinking it's a game of rugby. Oh, well, they probably won't even... They'll just think it's rugby. They'll just call it rugby, go and watch it, and they'll leave thinking it's rugby. But, John, even people in Melbourne don't know. A lot of people, you'd be surprised, a lot of people in Melbourne, they're very one-eyed towards the AFL, John. A lot of people down there don't know the difference between rugby league and rugby union and just refer to it as rugby as well.
Yeah.
So if people in Melbourne are doing it, well, imagine what people in Las Vegas are going to be calling it, John. They're going to be the same. They're going to be thinking, oh, well, this is a game of rugby. But anyway, John, I don't want to be too much of a killjoy. I mean, it'll be a great experience for everybody who gets to go. What an experience for, our competition winners and... anyone from Australia who travels over there to watch it, or anyone over there from Australia would enjoy it. And hopefully we get some Americans turning up, John, and experiencing the NRL for the first time live.
It was 2008 the United States was in it, actually. They always talk about it, and all of the squad codes talk about, like, there was a period where 2017, not 2008. There was a period where they were going to go play an AFL game in China to open the round. There was a period where they were going to go play a AFL game in Saudi Arabia to open the round. These countries that will just take any sport basically to promote themselves as world, to try and enter the world. That's one of the ways to enter the world, is to have some sports there.
And to be fair to Verlandes, at least he's thinking outside the square,
I hope I can go. This is the thing. I gotta try and find a way to it's work related. It's work related. I gotta go podcast from there or something. I don't know, but it's not. Wouldn't want it to be something that happens often, but it's a cool thing to do, especially if it helps to grow American Rugby League back to where it was, so American Rugby League can start qualifying again for World Cups and stuff like that. Sean Strickland, the MMA champion, said, I think I mentioned it before, he said, if America cared, they would spend the most money on it and be the best in the world, any sport, because that's all they would do. Yeah. The government would just, if they cared, they just give $1 billion to rugby league. And then America would be the best in the world at rugby league. Yeah. They immigrate people by giving them green cards and citizenship so they're qualified to play, to breed it over a few generations, Yeah. That's what America does. It's like other countries do it, but America more than, well, now like China and stuff, but America more than any other Western country is historically, that's their bag, that's what they do. If they really invested in a sport, they will bring people to the country. Baseball is a classic example. So many of the best players in baseball are South Americans, Central Americans. But they're Americans because they get given citizenships and stuff like that, you know. So America can say they're the best in the world at baseball. Same with the ice hockey. Canada's obviously better than America at ice hockey, but so many of the American ice hockey players are like Central Europeans, Eastern Bloc guys. Like, you know, they all have Czech Republic names and stuff like that, but they're Americans. And basketball as well. A bunch of their basketball players, they're given visas to eventually lead to citizenship to go to America and play in the NBA and then become Americans and then play for America.
Yeah.
And they get big dollars. The sport gets big money funding from the government, and that sport can then go and do that. So if America actually cared, right, they'd be the best in the world at rugby league. But they don't care.
Yeah. That's right, John. You know, if you look at rugby league, you know, you go, well, it's 2 states in Australia, New South Wales and Queensland. It's in New Zealand. It's got a niche in New Zealand. It's got a niche in England. And you go, well, what's the expansion area? Well, it's the Pacific Islands, obviously. But then you sort of go, well, you know, at some point you got to try things. You got to try something. You got to experiment. You know, obviously, yeah, it's not going to all of a sudden become as big as basketball, American football, baseball. Like, it's not going to happen, right? But you got to do something. Yeah. And Volandis is, and look, good luck to him, John.
Even like with the England one, you know, I used to play video games, massively multiplayer online game, where the Australian server was based in Europe. So it was Europe and Australia were on the same servers because, you know, Americans think that Australia is next to England. And it was when the Rugby League World Cup was on in England, and I would play with literally hundreds of people. I was pretty famous on the server, you know, like wrote a blog and I had hundreds of thousands of people go to my website that I ran. So me and my brother were pretty well known. And we played with like lots of people. And during the World Cup, not a single one of those English people knew that even the World Cup was on. They vaguely knew that England has a rugby league competition, but they just didn't know. And so it's like a niche there as well.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, it is. It's played in the north, and the rest of the country don't know a whole lot about it, John.
You know, the Catalans Dragons, and I know French people who have no idea that they exist. And you know, it's cool to do because it's a good marketing exercise for the rest of the world. But I would wish that the NRL, like we talked about it before, they should go prop up these smaller nations by getting them to play each other, and then they should work really hard on getting those nations that have like a bigger like England and New Zealand to grow it there, and help build up English rugby league. There's less players in Australia going to the Super League anymore, which I reckon is awesome. But it also like makes the Super League a little bit worse.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, John. One thing I remember from, you know, rugby league in the USA was at the end of the 2004 season, after the Bulldogs won the premiership, Australia played the USA on a gridiron field over there.
Yeah.
And Willie Mason got a serious injury in that game, and as a result missed most of the 2005 season. And it was it had a lot to do with the Bulldogs' premiership defence just not firing a shot in their premiership defence, and their premiership defence just went to water. They didn't even make the 8 that year in 05. So, yeah, that was one memory. Willie Mason getting a serious injury on the gridiron field against the USA of all teams at the end of 04, and then 05 premiership defence was because he'd won the Churchill medal in 04 as well. Yeah, so
I really wonder what they're going to do because it's different grass. Like that Raiders stadium is also a gridiron stadium, because they got the Raiders, whatever the Raiders were from the NFL, to go to Las Vegas.
Was it the Oakland Raiders?
Yeah, something
Oakland
like
Raiders?
that. Yeah, I think it was the Oakland Raiders. So they moved there. They were moving there the year I was in Vegas. The following year, I can't remember what year it was. And that stadium was purpose built for them. And it's different grass, different studs, different shoes, different everything. Like there's some danger there to injuries as well that clubs would want to be aware of.
Yeah, and these 4 clubs going over there would want to be careful of that, John.
Plus it's 100 yards. It's not 100 metres. I don't know what 100 yards is in real measurement. Move to the metric system for crying out loud.
But it will be exciting, John.
Yeah.
It'll be a season opener like no other.
Yeah, well, like I said, hopefully I find a way to get there. So that's NRL for the...
Yeah.
But the AFL has done some...
Yeah, so
some sneakies.
Yeah, so we talk about the NRL season opening in Vegas, John. I think
for that round, we have one match in Sydney for that round. It's Sydney versus Bulldogs round 1. It's the only match in Sydney. So the AFL has gone ahead and organised their first round draw. You want to break that down?
John, it sounds very confusing to me. But anyway, it's a bizarre start to the 2024 season. It's being called opening round instead of round 1. This is not round 1. So see if you can work this out, John. As you say, 4 games in Queensland and New South Wales the week before the traditional Carlton-Richmond season opener in round 1. So it's been called the opening round. It's clubs in the northern states are going to host Victorian rivals. Sydney, Melbourne clash at the SCG on Thursday, March 7. Brisbane Lions to host Carlton at the Gabba the next night. Gold Coast will play Richmond at Heritage Bank Stadium. That'll be Damien Hardwick's first game with his new club. GWS will host Collingwood, the defending premiers, John, at Giants Stadium later that night. So, the Lions, Blues and Giants Magpies, they're rematches of the prelim finals, John, from this season. Carlton are going to play Richmond on Thursday, March 14, so that'll be the traditional round 1 start, John. So this is how they're going to do it. So with those teams playing in this bizarre first weekend, so those teams are again going to play in round 1 as normal, and then to make up the difference, the 8 teams that play in opening round are going to have a bye between rounds 2 to 6. So that's how they're going to make up the difference, John. So that'll mean all 18 teams have played the same number of games by the start of round 7. Buys won't happen in round 4 though, John. That's been locked in for gather round. I don't know why they call it gather round. It's a weird name. That's when all clubs are going to meet for a full set of fixtures in South Australia. That's the AFL's version of Magic Round, John.
Yeah. Obviously they're doing it because the NRL's not here. Like, obviously. But it just seems like such a bizarre thing to do.
It's very confusing, John. It's very confusing.
I always, always say, like, really, I think NRL and AFL are basically on an equal footing now in today's day and age. AFL people will argue they're ahead, NRL people will argue that they're ahead. You know, that's like to me, it's Xbox versus PlayStation. You know.
Yeah, to be honest, John, I think in Australia alone, the AFL are probably ahead, but they're not thinking about the presence Rugby League have got in New Zealand and in the Pacific Islands. New Zealand, England. That's the thing. You got to factor in everything.
I don't think they're actually comparable anymore. 10 years ago, AFL was well ahead of everyone. NRL is catching up to how it is, and they have like benefits, and they're getting the same kind of almost the same level of TV deal. And I think the NRLW is actually better than the AFLW, and I think AFL's obviously
I would agree with that.
AFL crowd attendances are way better. NRL. TV ratings are way better. NRL has State of Origin. AFL has nothing.
The AFL does have a bigger value TV deal, but that having been said, as I say, I think in Australia, the AFL's bigger, but you can't just look at what the Warriors did this year, John. Look at what they brought to Rugby League. The AFL just doesn't have that. In England, the NRL has a presence. The AFL doesn't. The Pacific Islands, the NRL has a presence. Go to Papua New Guinea, every kid talks about it. Every kid probably wants to be Nathan Cleary at the moment. The AFL just doesn't have that, John, and you need to factor that into the equation.
That's right, but like this smacks of desperation to me. It's, they will say it's like an FU to the NRL, like we're taking over your city or whatever, while you're off like playing in Vegas, But to me, it smacks of like really like they're worried about something, and I don't think they have any need to worry about anything, but it's like they're trying to like jump on the back of the NRL because the Vegas trip is the NRL solely an NRL marketing exercise. You know, it's just solely for marketing.
Yeah. This is their response to that.
Yeah, and it just smacks of desperation, like they're worried about something.
That's right. It's unlike the AFL to respond that way. I thought they would have just responded, or they would have just had no response.
Yeah.
They would have just gone about their business as usual, and not
fact that they
worried about this
jigged their
rugby league in Vegas.
They broke their whole draw,
and they got so sensitive about the NRL marketing it as, this is Australia's best game or biggest sport, game, biggest sport. They got sensitive about that, John. They reacted to that. So unusual that there's these reactions out of the AFL.
Yeah, that's what, like, the last few months have just been a bit weird from the AFL, you know? Like, because someone needs to sit down and be like, hey, AFL, are you okay, honey? Did they have a bad grand final? Like, what's the go? I don't know. But, yeah, it just smacks of desperation, like they're worried about something.
To be fair, John, they do have much bigger membership numbers than the NRL as well, and their crowd figures blow the NRL out of the water. We've got to be fair about that.
Absolutely.
And as I said, I think in Australia the AFL is bigger. But overall, you are looking at them more on an even keel because of, as I say, the NRL or rugby league's presence in other countries as well.
Now I feel like they have something to. I feel like they think they have something to worry about, you know, and so that's why they're doing these kind of weird things now. It's weird, and you know they're not going to get people who are missing the NRL going to the AFL.
Yeah,
you know. So by chucking a bunch of matches in the NRL heartland while the NRL is away, it's not going to grow your crowd attendances. It's not going to even grow your TV ratings. You're not going to... I think the NRL and AFL both need to understand that they can't steal each other's crowd or ratings anymore. They're actually not in competition with each other. They've either got people who love one and are happy to watch the other one. They've got people who are happy to watch both. Or they've got people who only watch one. You know, they don't move in between. All those people, even people coming out of high school, everything, because it's family driven, you know. Like my nephew, he loves AFL because his dad loved AFL. He's fully into the AFL. He likes the Bulldogs because, like, you know, we like, on my side, like my family, we love the NRL. And we can't watch the AFL because my brother-in-law, I never watched the AFL when I was young. Never paid any attention to it, but, you know, like my brother-in-law, he was fully into the AFL. Went to some games, and I was like, yeah, this is cool to watch, man. Sweet. And he was a dirty, filthy Brisbane Broncos supporter. Patooey. But yeah, like, everybody is like, there are more people like that now, and that's what you've got. You can't go and try and, neither of these codes should go and try and steal stuff from the other one anymore, except that you got a guy who loves NRL. I'm happy to watch every NRL game, and I'll watch some AFL. Then you'll have a guy who watches every AFL game, and he's happy to watch some NRL. Or you'll have guys who I only watch the NRL. And you're never going to steal that guy. You're never going to take the NRL guy over to AFL. You might be able to convince the person who loves NRL and watches some AFL to watch a few more AFL games, but you're not going to convince them to watch less NRL. And vice versa.
Yeah, I think, John... trying to look at it as objectively as possible. I think when, I've mentioned this a couple of times before, when the Super League war hit in the mid to late 1990s, I think there was a real push towards the Swans and AFL in Sydney, and I think that at that time they developed a niche that they did not have in the early 1990s. I think, and Tony Lockett was a big part of that, and the late, great Ron Barassi as well. But since that time, John, since Tony Lockett retired, I don't think the AFL's reached the same heights in Sydney. I don't think it's certainly not bigger now than it was when Tony Lockett was at his best in the mid to late 1990s with the Swans. If anything, it's probably gone backwards in Sydney and Brisbane in the last 10 years, I would argue. And it certainly has not made the inroads that it would have liked to have made in those two markets in that time. That's one thing rugby league has over the AFL as well. It's got two of the three biggest markets in Australia. It's got Sydney and Brisbane. The AFL's only got one of the three in Melbourne. Half the people in the country live in New South Wales and Queensland. So you can't just dismiss it as, just two states. Well, it's two of the three biggest states in Australia. So this is a debate we could have all morning, John.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'll put it this way. I think it's a strange response from the AFL. It's unlike them. Normally, they would be bullish enough and self-confident enough to just do what they would normally do and not bat an eyelid. The fact that they've done this, you're right, it's a response to the rugby league in Vegas. And it's an interesting one, John.
Yeah, I think that said it best, actually. Normally, they'd be confident enough to do nothing.
Yeah.
And it just feels like they're lacking in confidence.
And normally they'd have the arrogance to do nothing.
What happened to their arrogance and confidence? It's so weird.
They had that good arrogance where we don't need to respond to that.
It could also be that there's some guy, marketing person sitting there having done this and gone, everyone's going to be talking about us now. You know, so, it is a bit weird. But
to be fair to them, though, John, I don't think, as well as the Storm have gone in Melbourne, they have gone really well. A lot down there, I think rugby league is smaller in Melbourne than the AFL is in Sydney.
I think it highlights that State of Origin doesn't play live there. You know, like that's not even on television there. I don't know about now, but I went to Melbourne once accidentally during Origin. It was for work, and I couldn't watch the match.
Yeah. So we've got to be honest about that, John. There's no question that the AFL has a bigger niche in Sydney than the NRL has in Melbourne. No doubt about it. We've got to be upfront about that. Yeah.
And that's fine. That's what they
that's the way it is. Yeah.
So is that everything for AFL?
I think so. I just I try and get one AFL item in each podcast, so I think that'll do for today.
So just a quick update on the combat. So Nikita Tszyu versus what's his name? Dylan Biggs, forgot his name. Is the 22nd of November for the Australian Super Welterweight title. Post this, then we'll know how Nikita Tszyu is travelling for that double header, and then we'll be able to look at what package we offer. So something that's come out about this is Nikita Tszyu is insisting that he should walk out second. Now, in combat sports, it's always the challenger who walks out first and has to hang around in the ring while the champion comes out second. In this instance, Nikita Tszyu is the challenger, and technically he's in B corner, and B corner always comes out second. And his team, his promoter, is insisting that he comes out second. Total break from... It's actually been labelled as disgusting behaviour by world boxing pundits.
Yeah, right.
It's just like it's not a hard and fast rule, you know. It's not a requirement. The suggested order is like it depends on the sport, but you know, like one corner goes out first, the other corner goes out second, with the exception of title fights. The challenger always goes out first. But in this, Nikita Tszyu is trying to like exercise his right because he's in the second corner. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on 22nd of November. Nikita Tszyu is the favourite. He's undefeated. If he goes ahead and wins and is healthy enough, then hopefully they'll push forward with that Tszyu brothers card in Vegas on the Friday night before the NRL. That's all that's happening in combat sports. Okay. But in tennis, what happened to Djokovic?
Yeah, so I'll start from where we left off last time, John. So on Tuesday, we had all the Monday results in our last podcast. On Tuesday, Medvedev beat Rublev 6-4, 6-2. Zverev beat Alcaraz too, John. That's an upset for you. 6-7, 6-3, 6-4. As you touched on, John, on Wednesday, Yannick Sinner beat Novak Djokovic, if you can believe that. 7-5, 6-7, 7-6. Great win for Yannick Sinner. So going into that match, John, Djokovic had won 19 consecutive matches on the tour since he lost to Carlos Alcaraz in that Wimbledon final. So well done to Sinner on ending that streak. And Djokovic, John, at one stage went into full villain mode. The crowd were booing him, and he started waving his hands as if he was conducting their boos, John. So this is where, and as you know, John, I am a Djokovic sympathiser and defender. This is where he loses people. He cares too much what other people think of him. He lets the boos of people get under his skin. Who cares? Look at the numbers. You know, someone like Djokovic should not care what these people think of him. As far as statistics go, in my opinion, he's the greatest player of all time. Why he would care so much about what people in the crowd are saying to him or booing him, just let it go, Novak. Don't react to this stuff. By reacting, he makes himself more and more unpopular, and clearly that's what he doesn't want because he keeps reacting to this sort of stuff.
So it's one of those things where it seems to be like, I always talk about like he just always seems to want to take the records, and he has the records, he gets all the records. But the one thing he can't take away from those other guys is people to like him.
He can't. The people have made their mind up about him, haven't they? And so he needs to get to a point where he just accepts that people love Federer more and they love Nadal more than him. That's just the way it is.
Exactly.
You can see it, John. Even now, Federer, when I think he walked into the Wimbledon Centre Court after he's retired. Who do you think? And that was among plenty of other champions as well, John. Leighton Hewitt had walked in. All sorts of big names had walked into the stadium, that Centre Court at Wimbledon. Who do you think got the biggest cheer, John? It's not rocket science. You don't have to be Albert Einstein to work it out.
Yeah, well, that's it. But it's like Djokovic loves having records, and he loves one-upping guys like Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, whoever. He always wants to be on top, and that's the one thing he can never take. So he just gets so emotionally invested in that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he needs to look at it and go, look, I've won 24 Grand Slams. Rafael Nadal's won 22. Roger Federer's won 20. And that's the most glaring statistic in his favour, but there's plenty of others, John. I could go all day. Far more weeks at world number one than those other two as well. But that having been said, he needs to look at it and go, well, this is not a popularity contest. It's not. Yeah, I'm winning the statistics game. Those two are beating me in the popularity contest, but this is not a popularity contest.
Yeah, you don't get wins by being popular. You don't break records by being popular. That's what his realisation is to be.
He needs to convince himself that, of the two, John, what would I want? Would I want more Grand Slams, or would I want more people to like me? I'd want more Grand Slams, John. I think most people would. Yeah, and so that's what he needs to tell himself. I'm winning the statistics game. I'm not winning the popularity contest, but this is not a popularity contest.
Yeah, he needs to become more like Conor McGregor.
Yes.
I just want to take this opportunity.
Siege mentality.
I just want to take this opportunity to apologise to absolutely fucking no one.
That's right, John.
That was his victory speech,
That's right. And even someone and I know, obviously, his success is on much less of a scale than the three men we've talked about, John. But even Daniil Medvedev, that they boo him at the US Open, and he goes to he has a post-match interview, and he just goes, yeah, boo me all you want, I don't care. And Medvedev genuinely doesn't care. You can see it, and he almost loves it. He loves that they boo him. Djokovic needs to be more like that, but you know that he just cares too much what people think, and you can see it get under his skin, John.
Yeah, and that's it. He just needs to be a Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor knows he's a villain, and he doesn't care.
Own it.
You know what
he
knows?
Being the villain. There's nothing wrong with being the villain. Yeah, every pantomime show needs a villain, John.
It doesn't matter because I got $1 billion. While you're booing me, I'm sitting on my yacht.
Yeah, while you're slaving away 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Look at me. I've got properties in Monaco. I'm the best tennis player of all time.
The results for today were in though.
So John. Djokovic losing that match to Sinner. I'll keep running through these results, John. So Rune beat Tsitsipas.
Good.
It was actually 2-1 in the first set. Rune was leading, and then it was a walkover. Tsitsipas pulled out of the tournament with a back injury, John, replaced in the green group by Hubert Hurkacz. So there you go. Thursday results, John. Today. Alcaraz beat Rublev 7-5, 6-2.
Yep,
Medvedev beats Zverev 7-6, 6-4, John.
So how does it work from here?
John...
Djokovic is playing tomorrow.
Yeah, Djokovic is playing Hurkacz. So Djokovic leads Hurkacz 6-0 in their career head-to-head meetings, John. You'd have to think he's going to bounce back and win that one. Sinner, coming off that win over Djokovic, is going to play against Rune. Rune leads the head-to-head 2-0 there. But Sinner is coming off that very good win over Djokovic. So, the standings, John, as we stand.
Yeah, I was looking for it, but I just kept finding the
I found
rankings.
The standings. Not easy to find. They could make it easier for us.
Because the ATP standings is actually what they call the rankings.
Yeah, so it is very confusing. I do actually have the tournament standings here, though, John.
Sweet.
So, the green group. Jannik Sinner is on top, John, with 2 wins. So, there you go. He's on top of the green group. Novak Djokovic second with 1 win, 1 loss. Rune, third, 1 win, 1 loss. Hurkacz, well, he hasn't played yet. He's just come in for Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas, obviously, on the bottom of that group. 2 losses, and he's out of the tournament. So the red group, John, Daniil Medvedev, 2 wins, no losses. He's on top. Alexander Zverev, 1 win, 1 loss. Carlos Alcaraz, 1 win, 1 loss. Andrei Rublev, no wins, 2 losses, John. So we just wait until everybody's played everybody in these groups.
On Saturday it finishes, right?
Yeah, we wait till everybody's played everybody in the group stage. At the end of the group stage, the winner of the green group plays the runner-up from the red group in the semis. The runner-up from the green group plays the winner of the red group in the other semi. The 2 winners play in the final.
So Djokovic has got to win to get through.
Yes, he will have to after losing to Sinner. Yeah, he'll have to win that match.
Alcaraz will have to win to get through.
Yeah, so Djokovic will have to beat Hurkacz. Yeah, definitely.
And then it can be Djoko and Sinner, and then Alcaraz and Medvedev. Who else is in that? Who's coming second in Alcaraz group? Oh, Zverev. Yeah, Zverev. So Alcaraz has, yeah. So if Djokovic, it's Sinner, probably going to be Sinner and Djokovic, and then Alcaraz needs to win again to get up, and then it can be Medvedev and Alcaraz. So Alcaraz has got to beat Medvedev.
Yeah, well, Alcaraz and Djokovic are in a must-win situation.
Yeah.
They've got to win their third match now.
And they've got to win well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll see what happens. It'll be perfectly in time for Monday, actually. Do we know when the final actually is? The final starts? It wouldn't be Sunday. It'd be Monday, right?
Oh, yeah, no, I'd imagine, John, that the final will be on Monday morning. Yeah, I think we'll have the... I mean, if it's a night final there, it could be an in progress in our Monday podcast.
So
it could be, but it could be already done by the time we get on, John. I think we'll have that final result. So usually the finals of tournaments are on a Sunday, which over in Italy would be Monday morning our time. So I think we'll have the champion in Monday morning's podcast.
12:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. is the normal times that the 2 matches are on. So.
Yeah, so we'll have that winner for Monday morning's podcast, I'm pretty sure, John.
Okay, other news.
Yes.
FIFA. FIFA continues to frustrate the world. So it's come out now that FIFA actually gave the World Cup to the Saudis. Well, we already knew they gave it to them. But they actually knew it as early as 2020 that Saudi was going to be hosting the World Cup in whatever it was, 2028 or whatever.
Or 26, I think it'd be.
Whatever they got 2030. 2026.
Oh, right, so...
Yeah. 2026 and 2030 was done at the same time.
Right, yeah.
Saudi submitted their comprehensive bid 65 minutes after it was announced. So it has come out that FIFA President Gianni Infantino was working towards the World Cup hosted in Saudi Arabia as early as 2020. New York Times investigative reporter Tariq Panja has revealed. When Infantino took power in FIFA after that debacle with Australia, everybody in Australia knows, from the 2015 corruption scandal, he promised a new era free of corruption. But apparently, so they knew that Saudi Arabia, according to this article, they knew that Saudi Arabia was going to be hosting 2030, whatever it is, as early as 2020. Mm-hmm. But he had actually been working on it since the day he took over in 2015. The story, the New York Times story, actually calls FIFA boss the Saudi inside man. They'd been talking since 2015, and then Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte, the Italian Prime Minister has a lot of power over FIFA as well. Giuseppe Conte actually met Infantino in 2020, which is his first visit outside of Switzerland since the COVID pandemic began, and that was when he was like, and Infantino pitched then to the Italian Prime Minister, what do you think of this? And so it's actually like what's come out also is it's really obvious that the head of Saudi Arabia, Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS as he's well known,
Mm-hmm.
They actually sat together at the Esports World Cup in Riyadh, MBS and Infantino. And it is now the belief of everyone that obviously Infantino has been paid by MBS. Now, MBS and Saudi Arabia, a very corrupt country.
Yeah, well, the killing of Jamal Khashoggi comes to mind, John.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
If you haven't watched the Dissident documentary, you should definitely watch the Dissident documentary about Jamal Khashoggi.
Yeah.
And basically, what is the belief is MBS just went back to the old days of FIFA and paid Gianni Infantino millions of dollars to when he took over. He took over straight in 2015, straight in. We won the World Cup, and as early as 2020, he paid him enough that it was a lock-in, determined by Infantino and the Italian Prime Minister as part of international relations between Saudi Arabia and Italy, and that was it. Anyone else who did anything else, it didn't even matter. They were forced to concede that Saudi Arabia would have it, and that was it, and that was final.
This is the thing, John. When you have a genuinely world game like soccer is, of course it is. Well, there are countries in the world that operate in a corrupt way, and so if you have a genuinely world game, you're going to bring in countries that are corrupt and have corrupt practices. One thing I've found that's interesting about FIFA over the years, John, is that what they did to combat a lot of this perception that they're corrupt, a rightful perception, of course, is they decided to bring in their own ethics committee. They just set up an ethics committee. And so what they do is, whenever there's a matter in question like this one in terms of ethics, clearly it is, they'll say, oh, look, we're going to refer the matter to our ethics committee. And then they'll refer it to their ethics committee, and surprise, surprise, their own ethics committee, which they set up, comes back and says, oh, we couldn't find anything improper here. That's what they do, John, refer it to the ethics committee, and then they put themselves at arm's length with use of their own dodgy ethics committee, John.
I think the only way to end this is for countries to step in and boycott the World Cup. Honestly.
Yeah.
The only way changes are going to happen. This is...
Well, with Qatar and the amount of people who died building the stadiums there, a lot of countries really should, including Australia, if we're being, fair dinkum honest about it, Australia should have boycotted.
Yeah. It's...
Among other countries.
It's an appalling function. Like, I know it's a business, but it's individuals getting rich off the back of... Man, as I said, watch the documentary Dissident. Saudi Arabia hacked Jeff Bezos' phone. It's widely suspected that they were the ones that released that Jeff Bezos was having an affair after Jeff Bezos pulled out of attending a convention there, where he was the personal guest of MBS, after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. So they murdered Jamal Khashoggi, which everyone knows they did. Jeff Bezos said, hey, it's a little bit hot, I don't want to be coming there. And then the MBS's response to him in text message was, oh, this wasn't us. And Jeff Bezos responded, what wasn't us? And then the next day it came out that he'd been having an affair. And it's widely, Saudi Arabia is one of the first purchasers of the hacking tool Pegasus from Israel.
Yep.
And I investigated how much it cost to buy it. It's like $140 million.
Not cheap.
I don't have 140.
You don't have a lazy 140 million lying around, John.
But it's appalling, and I know soccer is popular. Okay, I understand. I like soccer, football, whatever you want to call it. Nothing will ever change, and the fact that everyone accepts it, all these countries that play soccer just accept this. Like Brazil hosted the World Cup. It was. There was actually Brazilian protests. It was the same time as Turkey was going through a massive process as well. The Brazilian protests were based around the Brazilian government increasing the cost of public transport to cover the cost of building stadiums for the World Cup. And they had massive protests. Like, even the police joined in on the protests in Brazil at the time, I don't understand why countries like America and England and, supposed forward-thinking... even not just Western, but forward-thinking countries, like civilized countries, places like Chile Brazil, France, all these European countries, don't say, yeah, enough is enough with this. Honestly, I know FIFA is like the big soccer corporation. But what are they going to do? FIFA relies on the countries to do it.
That's the thing, John. I mean, soccer is the world game, it is. But, I mean, McDonald's is the world restaurant, John. That doesn't make McDonald's the best food in the world, does it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Why doesn't someone just go off and form the world championship? And a bunch of independent countries do it and then not have this. This is just to me, it's kind of terrifying. This is billions and billions, literally billions of dollars, okay, that goes through different economies. And my opinion, not a nice person who runs not a nice country is able to pay clearly millions of dollars in bribes to not a nice person who runs not a nice organisation to run something that the whole entire world is going to watch. As I said, I understand it's popular. I understand we all want to watch. Everyone wants to watch the World Cup. But there has to be some limits. If Kim Jong-un paid Gianni Infantino money, are they going to go run a World Cup in North Korea? What's the limit?
Money talks, eh?
What is the limit here for the rest of the world, for fans, for countries, for soccer organisations in countries, to sit back down and go, wait a second, you have gone too far here. Like, what is the limit?
Yeah, you're right, John.
What country does it have to be?
Where do they draw the line? Is Russia off limits now?
Yeah.
Do we even know that Russia's off limits, even amid the war that's going on?
Everyone hates Russia because they invaded Ukraine. Yeah. But if Russia pitched and paid enough money, would everyone go, all right, we're going to have the Olympic Committee took a stand, Russia still can't compete in the Olympics. They got to wear white uniforms and be no country affiliated.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Independent athletes.
Yeah. But at least they took a stand. The problem with this is the governing body doesn't take a stand because the governing body is the corrupt thing. They're the bad thing. All the members need to take a stand. Because the reason the Olympics took a stand is because all the members went, hey, this is dodge.
That's the thing, John. Like, a lot of people, and even in tennis, that year where Wimbledon banned the Russian and Belarusian players from competing in the tournament, and a lot of people said, oh, gee, that's a bit harsh. But under these circumstances, you've probably got to be a bit harsh, John. You got to send a message.
And nobody sends a message to FIFA. Everybody just accepts it. Like, Australia's not going to do anything. They had a little bit of a news article. America, I don't even know if America qualifies for the World Cup. They're not going to do anything. England's not going to do anything. France isn't going to do anything. Germany's not going to do anything. But all of those countries are forward-thinking countries. When there was, I can't remember what war it was, might have been Syria or something, and then all the refugees were running, and Germany, Angela Merkel was the chancellor at the time, promoted how nice they were, and they were letting 8,000 refugees in, and they're like, they want to save the world, and they're a good country. They're a lawful good country. And for the sake of soccer, they let this kind of stuff go on. As I said, what is the country that can't host the World Cup? I want FIFA to come out and tell me which country. North Korea can qualify for the World Cup, but they can participate. Yeah. Fair enough. Let them play. You can ban them if you want. Whatever. But if North Korea pays Infantino enough money, are we going to have a World Cup in North Korea?
Yeah. Well, it's the downside of having a genuinely world game is you bring in. Well, there are corrupt countries in the world. So if you have a genuinely world game, you bring in these corrupt countries. They become a part of it. So it's not... Often they boast that they're the world game, but there's downsides to it as well. And this one is a huge downside, John.
If you have corrupt countries in your game, you at least have to have an actually not corrupt commission. Like, the people that run it can't be corrupt.
Yeah. That's right, John.
But yeah, it's just appalling that this information is coming out. It'll just continue, and it'll be the same. It was meant to stop in 2015 after Australia got screwed. And so apparently from 2015 it's just continued. So what's going to happen next?
I don't think it'll ever stop, John. The people who, the people who are in the positions to take these actions and make these decisions, they all just enable each other, and so the cycle will just continue with FIFA.
It's appalling.
There's nobody who will put a stop. Nobody would be able to put a stop to it, John. In all honesty.
No, because as soon as you hire somebody else, they're just going to become the same.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You're right. So, John, I know Angela Merkel's had a mention today, Kim Jong-un, Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia. Yep. Yes. They've all had mentions today, John. So, continuing on with that theme, former and this is right up your alley, John, former US president and perhaps the next US president.
I hope so.
Donald Trump attended the UFC on the weekend, John.
He did.
To massive, and we've got to be honest, John, we're not CNN or Fox News here. We're going to give a balanced account of this. Walked into the arena to massive cheers, John.
He did.
He was a man.
Absolutely.
He was a popular man walking in, and if Joe Biden had walked in, John, everyone would have gone to sleep and no one would have cared. That having been said, I think the wife of comedian Bill Burr was seen giving him the double middle finger on camera, John.
It was.
So in interest of balance, I'm giving the whole picture, John, so nobody can accuse us of...
There is a certain type of person who watches the UFC. Got to understand. A lot of actors and Californiites and stuff, those liberal blue-haired people actually invested in the UFC ages ago, like Suaalii Theron, Chris Hemsworth, stuff like that. They all went through buybacks and made profits. And that was really a kind of funny thing about the UFC. The lowest common denominator that watch it, Donald Trump supporters, all of them. The investors, a large majority of the investors, not necessarily the money, but the amount of people that invested were like left-wing liberals. Mm. The people who run it, like Dana White, are free speech absolutionists. They're not necessarily right-wing, but a lot of people say they're right-wing. Like when a few months ago, when a couple of the fighters did homophobic slurs after their wins, Dana White was questioned about it in the press conference, and he said, I don't fucking care. They can say whatever they want. That's like a direct quote.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Dana White, John. I've got a big headline here in my notes. He told a major UFC sponsor to go F yourself after they demanded he remove a video post supporting Donald Trump. Yeah. So you got to hand it to Dana. But you got to... Oh, sorry, what did I...
Dana White said it.
Oh, yeah. So, Dana White told a UFC sponsor to go F yourself, after a positive video post supporting Donald Trump. So you got to give Dana White some credit in that regard, John. A lot of people would just go to water in those scenarios and just bow to what a sponsor says. But Dana White's just like, no, this is what I believe. I'm supporting him. Donald Trump has supported the UFC, done good things for the UFC, John. We've got to be fair here. He's been a huge help to the UFC, and Dana White's never forgotten that. And Dana White's backing him, John. And look, good on him for standing by him. Because
the way that UFC used to work was it was on, I can't remember the channels, right? So they have weekly fight cards, and then they have pay-per-views generally once a month. Mm-hmm. Just before the pandemic, where everything shut down, they signed a deal with ESPN, which was worth heaps of money. It was a massive TV deal. Now, the issue with it was congruent on them airing a certain amount of events for the year.
Right.
Okay. So when COVID shut everything down, and it was meant to be 2 weeks to flatten the curve and all that kind of thing, Dana White, who is a very good CEO, sat down and went, we're in serious trouble here because we don't have any backup. Where with ESPN, we have to have 52 events in the year or whatever the hell it was. I need to get back up and running straight away. And Donald Trump helped them, and they were back. Dana White always goes on about how they were the first sport in the world to get back up, which is wrong. He's incorrect. Dana White has a tendency to...
Exaggerate.
Stretch the truth a little.
He's not the only one, John.
So he's Donald Trump supporter.
I think the person he was backing here...
He might have learned it direct from Donald Trump. Rugby League was back up and running before UFC. Horse racing never shut down. Okay, so
wasn't Rugby League the first one to get back up, John?
Yeah,
or was one of them? Wasn't
so Rugby League was up in 2 weeks. I believe UFC was up in 19 days. So it was about 3 days after or something Rugby League went back up. And AFL was through almost immediately the same time as Rugby League. But Dana White doesn't know what Rugby League or AFL in Australia is.
He's not going to.
So, but he, the way he says
we're talking about COVID relaunch.
Yeah. So Dana White says, we were the first sport in the world back up and running. No, you weren't. Okay.
I'm pretty sure the Rugby League were 2 weeks before the AFL too, John. They got back earlier.
Yeah. So actually what I remember is horse racing didn't stop. They just stopped having people at horse racing.
Yeah.
and rugby league was up before UFC. I'm positive of that for a fact because I watched both. And what they did during that year was they were able to sanction, get visas, get COVID testing in place and stuff like that. They were able to get COVID testing, and it was no small part thanks to Donald Trump. So Dana White is a massive Donald Trump supporter. Fair enough. Like I said, he's not. There's a whole thing now where if you're not left wing, you're right wing, but you can be left wing or centrist and also have some right wing views and not be what do they call it? Alt right, far right.
You can be objective, John.
Yeah.
You can look
so
at it
he is a right wing. He's a Republican. Yeah, Republican. But he's not like a right-wing nut job. He does support Donald Trump. He didn't really want to... He said something like he doesn't want to support any of the other ones, the other Republicans, but he supports Donald Trump, and it's because of that. So the other thing about... Like, people are saying it's probably not true that he's told a major sponsor to go F themselves, because Dana White does have the tendency to exaggerate or... But, man, I believe it, actually, knowing him. Like, he would publicly say it, you know. He does say some nonsense stuff. Like, he once bragged about how they'd caught a hacker. I'm like, no, you haven't. You haven't caught any illegal streams. There's no reduction in illegal streams. Come on, bro.
So the crowd were chanting, USA, USA, UFC, as Trump made his entrance at UFC 295. And he was surrounded by Kid Rock.
Yeah, that guy's a weirdo.
Tucker Carlson and Dana White, as we've talked about, John. So there you go.
I was watching it live. He came in, and it was but that's the thing. Like, when Colby Covington won one of his fights, Donald Trump called him in the press conference. It was when he was president. He loves the UFC. Donald Trump loves the UFC. He goes to a lot of events, and he gets cheers every single time. But like I said, there is a certain type of person who watches the UFC. If I was in America, I wouldn't vote for Donald Trump. I also wouldn't vote for Joe Biden. Voting in America is voluntary. You don't get fined if you don't do it. So actually, I wouldn't vote. That's my thing. I would also live in like a log cabin in Utah or something in the mountains of Montana or something like that.
It's going to be an interesting election year, John.
It'll be so funny if he wins because he can win in prison and then pardon himself.
Yeah. Oh, you mentioned we're going to have SmartB odds on the next US president. Yeah,
it's coming soon.
Right?
Yeah,
awesome.
we're just working on
that'll be great. That'll be awesome.
Yeah. I like, what's his name, VJ, the guy, I don't know, his family name. His family name is really long to pronounce. There's something right now on Elite Bet. Donald Trump is a favourite at $2.48.
And Joe Biden's $3.05. Yeah,
so
there you go.
What they reckon is Michelle Obama, she's not even running. What they reckon is Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to take a lot of votes away from Donald Trump that will help Joe Biden win. Because Robert Kennedy Jr. was originally a Democrat, and now he's running as an independent. Vivek Ramaswamy, I like that guy, just because he speaks so well. I have no interest in it. Like, I don't care who wins. Donald Trump's reign didn't affect my life at all, except for people who were... All it was people who were scared about Donald Trump.
The sun still came up the day after, John. The sun's still shining.
What I want to actually see is the Australian government fix the cost of living crisis, and that's all. That'll get me voting.
It'd be nice if... I won't go.
That'll get me voting, you know? So, yeah, anyway.
Anyway, John, I got one more for you. So, John, we move from Donald Trump to the Donald Trump of tennis, Nick Kyrgios.
Oh, here we go.
He has mended a rift with rapper Drake after Drake said the tennis star hurt him when he blamed a bad performance at Wimbledon on Drake's music. So the feud between the pair stemmed from back to 2014, John, when Kyrgios, who was only a very young man at the time, and he actually beat Rafael Nadal in that tournament, which shocked everybody, blamed his poor third-round performance, which he just got past Yuri Vesely of the Czech Republic, on Drake's music. At the time, Kyrgios said, "I came out really flat, so hopefully I won't listen to that again. It was actually Drake. Didn't do the job for me," Kyrgios said. But anyway, so Drake recently contacted him on social media and said, "When you said I was trash, it hurt me because you're really my fave player," he wrote. Kyrgios replied, haha, I didn't say you are trash. I love your music, my bro. I hope you are good. Drake then wished Kyrgios the best as the Aussie tries to recover from another injury, John, and tries to get back for the Australian Open. He said, we will link up soon. Speedy recovery, my guy. So there you go. Nice that they've mended their differences.
There's a thing called the Drake curse. Whoever Drake bets massive dollars on UFC, actually. Massive dollars. And he often tweets his bet slip. And he'll bet like, $250,000 on people, $1 million on people and stuff like that. Ridiculous numbers.
Yeah, right.
But whoever he bets on loses. The Drake curse. You'll see it while matches are on, while fights are on, and like Drake will tweet his bet slip, and I'm like, I got 300,000 on this guy, and then this social media will blow up. I'm like, well, Drake's just ruined my multi. Only on the title fights though. Is that all we got for today?
Yeah, that's my other news.
Social media comments. Okay, where's my thingy? All right, so I've got a couple. I'll give the easy one first, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the video where we were discussing how the English cricket team should watch Ted Lasso, Portes on YouTube commented, there's a reason they call them whinging poms. There absolutely is, because they're going to whinge about everything.
It's on the money there, John.
Yeah, totally agree with you there, Portes. Now, on our cricket competition, Jeff Devine on Facebook, we had a bit of a back and forth with him. So first he commented, now there's no need to swear, Jeff. Like just you can be polite and nice. Commented with a swear about how there was an issue with the form and it's effing stupid because it was telling him he had numbers in his name. So social media manager commented and said, we'll have a look at it for you. Let me just have a look, and fixed it. There was an issue. We apologise for that. It was if you had spaces or capital letters at any point throughout your name, it would read it as a number for some reason. Fix it straight away. And then commented back to him and said, this is fixed. So his response was to insinuate that he'd have no chance of winning the competition now. Because he complained. To which we replied and told him, no, it's a fair draw. It's a random draw. It'll be drawn on Monday. Okay? We'll announce it during the podcast. To which he replied, man, this guy, I wonder if he's English. Oh, it's too late now. I've signed up and I forgot to tick cricket. Okay, guys. You can edit your profile and tick cricket. You'll still qualify. You don't need to sign up. And you can just edit your profile and tick. We'll never know if you ticked it later or ticked it at sign up. Okay. He also said, but now you're also going to start spamming my email with a bunch of emails. And I got to say, have we ever sent anyone an email from SmartB?
So this back and forth just continued.
It just continued.
Oh, wow.
So with regards to emails, we don't spam anyone's emails. There are some notifications coming soon for some functions like the Black Book. We've just launched the Black Book notifications. So if you sign up for the Black Book, you do have to sign up, add some horses to your Black Book. It'll tell you when they're running. We are adding the Smart Book, which does the same for sports. So when you have upcoming fixtures, it'll be really good. I can put I follow my favourite fighters like Stipe Miocic or Alex Pereira, and it will tell me when they get a fight announced. Mm-hmm. So that's coming, but we don't spam emails you. You sign up for your notifications. Calm down, Jeff.
It's all right.
Still have equal chance of winning.
All right. The world hasn't ended. Yeah. It's okay.
It's okay. Form is fixed, and just tick cricket. Don't forget the cricket competition. Sign up to SmartB at smartb.com.au and tick cricket. We also have the Subversion competition. Sign up for SmartB, and if you're interested in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or combat sports, sign up and you can win 2 tickets to Subversion, the first Subversion event in 2024. Tune in to Subversion Ascension on the 2nd of December. The Roundhouse, just go to Mosh Ticks and search for Subversion Ascension. My match of the night, as much as I love Saunders versus Bob, my match of the night is definitely going to be Ali El-Kir versus Talazon Suarez. I might give a bit of a preview closer to the date because it's in 2 weeks, because once the whole card is announced, but there's some crackers of fights on there. It's going to be a great night. It's always a great night, and I'll be there, so come up and say hello. Make sure you listen to Club Prairie Fire. It's great updates on the cricket. Our sponsorship is almost over there because it was the length of the World Cup. And don't forget to follow SmartB App on all of the socials. And also there's a new Instagram, SmartB Podcast, which you can follow to get all of our snippets in one easy-to-see place. Cool. That's it for the day, and we'll see you on Monday.
Thanks, John. See you, mate.
All on Monday. Bye, Producer John.
Bye-bye.